Okay, guys, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with everything. Hey, everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you. Um, yeah, so this guest speaker is a pretty good one. Christina is a friend of the program, friend of mine. Really excellent stuff. Before we get into that, though, a couple of reminders. I already mentioned just make sure to keep muted unless you're asking a question or something. Just to sort of keep order, if you don't mind, if you have a question, raise your hand and wait for Christina to have a gap to where she can answer you. You can always ask questions in the chat and we'll pick them up if we miss them immediately. Trying to think of any other major notes. Those are pretty much the main notes. As always, this is recorded, so we will have a full recording of it posted probably tomorrow, maybe the next day. But that will be in the announcements channel in Slack, so no worries there. But yeah, without too much else, we have Kristyna Ferris here. So Kristyna is a Microsoft MVP. She is also a solutions architect for P3 Consulting, I believe is the company. She is really exceptional with Power BI, knows a lot about Fabric, and is just generally sort of a Microsoft guru and a data person. So really great to have her here, talking a little bit about converting some of your effort into opportunities down the line. So I'll let her take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, David. He likes to make me blush the color of my chair, so I appreciate that intro. Like David mentioned, I am a huge fan of the data community. I am also Kentucky based, so if you find yourself in Lexington, usually it would be this Monday. They are doing a meeting today, but we're here instead, which means we all get to beat the snow, in my opinion. So thanks for joining here, but always feel free to join us in person as well.
And
So
on that note, really quick, I can give you
yeah,
extra information on how to join that if you hit me up in Slack. I can send you the registration links and everything you need. Just let me know.
thanks, David. Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, a little bit about me. I am a Microsoft MVP for both the data platform and Fabric. I'm a solution architect over at P3 Adaptive, which is a consultancy. So you had that totally right. Uh, also co-lead the Lexington Data Technology Group, and I am an author on a blog called Data on Wheels. So we're going to be talking a little about that today, just kind of the hero's journey of going from, hey, I am answering all these questions and I want the work I'm doing to be shared with other people, to, hey, now I feel like I'm actually giving back to a community that's given me so much. So with that in mind, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to stay in touch, especially as you go through your data journey. I'd love to see how all of us get to grow and just contribute. It is truly a rising tides raise all boats situation. This is not a single pie we're all eating out of. All right. With that in mind, let's get into it. So why should I speak or blog? There's a lot of different reasons for this. I think people know in their head that it's a good thing, but sometimes it's nice to hear it all spelled out. So why should I speak or blog? Why should I contribute back to the community? Opportunities. To sum it all up, it's opportunities. Now, obviously, I have a little meme here of a shyness monster basically holding you back from those opportunities. And I think that happens to a lot of us, right? We get in our heads about imposter syndrome. We get in our heads about, oh, this is going to take too much of my time, or I don't have anything new to tell people. We're going to address all of these myths. But at the heart of it, it helps to know your goal, right? The idea here is that speaking, blogging, giving back to the community can help you with job opportunities. For example, I have a number of friends in the past 3 months who all lost their jobs due to acquisitions and mergers, and were able to find a job within a week because they knew people in the data community and were able to connect and find a good role for them. Collaborations are awesome. Speaking invites, I've gone and traveled all around the world based on speaking. It's been awesome. And travel, like I said there. So there's a lot of opportunities that can come from building your brand, building your presence in the community. So let's get into one that's a really big stand out in my opinion. Now these screenshots are a little small, so I'm sorry about that, but they are from LinkedIn. So when I saw this, I had to just take a screenshot of it. It is from a couple months ago, but I've seen many since then. This is from a hiring manager. He's a head of data engineering at a company over in Scotland. And he has said he no longer asks what tools people know how to use. He asks, how do you learn new things? The reason for that is that in this day and age, especially with AI, especially with things like ChatGPT and Claude coming out, it is a lot more about how you learn than it is about how much you know about a given tool. The tools change all the time. How you learn is going to be what separates you from the pack. So he has said in his post, how do you stand out? Engaging with the data community is a really big green flag. Contributing to open source projects and forums, and sharing what you learn, right? Let it be your biggest advocate. Let it champion you before you even get to the interview. This is huge. So we're going to talk about this in more depth. So first of all, what's holding you back, right? What's your shyness monster? For some people, it's imposter syndrome. For other people, it's perfectionism. Could be time, fear of failure, all of these, right? When we talk about these monsters, they seem really scary. And I have this kind of image here to kind of highlight that they're not that scary under the hood, right? What faces you is not new to humanity. These are things that everybody deals with, not to minimize them, but there are tools we can use to get past them, right? Other people have done it. Other people have climbed these mountains. We can do it together. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, for example, what I mean by that is you don't feel confident that you have something to offer that is valuable, right? And that's kind of what the heart of all of these is that you're not confident in your ability to contribute. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, perfectionism is basically the ugly cousin of that, which is nothing is good enough to post, right? Nothing is good enough. This is something I struggle with all the time. I actually have a blog post that I wrote 2 months ago when I was in Vienna, and I still haven't posted it, partially because of perfectionism, right? We all fall victim to it. I've thought many times, should I just scrap it? I've decided no, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just have to post it. So stay tuned. Someday I'll actually post that. The other thing is time, right? A lot of us, this is not our full-time lives, right? This is not our hobby. This is not something that we can dedicate 80 hours a week to on top of work, right? So we can talk about how we actually make this practical, where you can still have hobbies, you can still have a full-time job, you can still have kids, a family, a life, but still contribute to your overall career. The last one is fear of failure, and I think all of these boil down to this. What if I'm not good enough? What if it's not perfect enough? And what if I need to dedicate too much time? And all of these add up to failing. What if I cannot do it? Well, I'm here to tell you that I live by the philosophy of fail fast. That is my #1 philosophy. Fail fast, fail safe. I have to put in the fail safe because somebody pointed out to me that you shouldn't always fail, right? Like you shouldn't drive a car into a tree. Maybe you drive a car in a parking lot, learn how to fail, but safely. So we can do that with the blogging community. We can do that with speaking. There's tons of opportunities to fail fast and to get over that hurdle of this fear of failure. So how are we going to overcome it? We're going to overcome it with some tools. I like to think of it this way. Batman is not Superman, right? It can really feel like everybody you see in the data community is actually Superman. It's just something in their DNA. It's something that they were born with, and it's not anything you can replicate. And that's just not true. They're actually all Batman, right? I mean, we're probably not multimillionaires. Most of us aren't because we're too much of nerds to be that salesy, A lot of us really love what we do, so we stay there. But the point being, we can build our tool belt and become Batman. So how do we do this? I've got 3 tools that all kind of culminate in building your own brand. So I want to talk to you guys about the tiny topic picker, the content snowball, and the Lego method. As you can see, I am a very big fan of Legos. Huge fan, you might say. And at some point, the Death Star will be here. I was just telling David about that. But I have to finish building it first, and that comes down to that time problem we talked about earlier. But anyway, we're going to talk about how we can use the tiny topic picker, the content snowball, and the Lego method to create your own brand. And this is going to be fun, guys. It's going to be a good time. All right, so creating your own brand. We're going to do the Marie Kondo method. Pick something that brings you joy, right? I don't know who you are, but I'd like to. That is the method that you want to be aiming for. I have a friend of mine who her entire brand is data plumber because she saw Mario and thought, hey, I'm building pipelines. Let's go ahead and become the data plumber. We will connect people's data in a way that makes sense. And I thought that was genius. She's got rubber ducks as a big part of her branding. And it makes a really big difference because people want to get to know her, right? It seems fun and she's excited by it. Myself, I love dragons, so I went with Data Dragoness, right? You just pick something that brings you joy. It can be as simple as I have a friend of mine, a good friend that David also knows, who co-leads the user group with me, who races cars in his free time. So he's sequel at speed, right? You just find something that makes you happy and people will connect it with you in the future. Obviously, this does need to be, work friendly. I will just call that out just on the recording. But the idea here is it's something that represents you. Now, if you're stuck, think about an icon or an image you would want on a sticker. This is the key, in my opinion, and this is where I think AI has actually helped a lot of people do this, because you can put into something like Claude or ChatGPT, your favorite AI of choice, and you can say, hey, these are the things I'm interested in. Can you help me think of either an acronym or a alliteration that ties to what I do? Now, for me, that's data, right? So I always want to tie it back to data. Again, Data Plumber, right? That's super, super easy. Data Dragoness, I'm a big sucker for alliteration, so that's what I went with. SQL at speed, again, you got the SQL, S, and then at speed, S. You just find something that kind of rolls off the tongue. I have another friend who's a SQL swimmer because she loves swimming. You just find something that will be memorable, kind of like a song, right? We're not trying to write poetry here. We are trying to create a hit song that people get stuck in their heads when they think of you. Now, a big blocker here is picking the wrong thing, right? I'm afraid I'm going to pick something, I'm going to be stuck with it forever. I'm going to hate it. Let me tell you right now, you can always change it. Nobody is going to come for you. You know what I mean? In a lot of these cases, especially if you're like me and you still keep your full-time job while you do this is not actually your brand that you're putting on invoices. This is not a brand you're putting into an LLC necessarily, where you have to file a bunch of paperwork if you change the name of it, right? I would like to think if Twitter can change to X, I can change my personal brand to whatever I want anytime. So don't be too scared of picking the wrong thing. You're going to have a lot of leeway before things really pick up and get a lot of traction. Just don't change it all the time, right? Eventually settle into something. Eventually you'll fall in love with something, and then it will be tied with your identity. And at that point, it will be harder to change. Again, it's not impossible still. It's still possible, but try and think of, okay, I have probably 6 months to change this as many times as I want before anybody's going to notice that I've changed it 20 times. So just start. Just pick something and go with it. Just get yourself off the blank page. So again, the breaker here, pick something with an alliteration or puns, data related, and safe for work. If you have all of those things, it's a winner. Again, if you work more in front-end design, maybe you're working as a back-end developer, think of something that really ties in with a tool that you use or your coding language you use, just to make it fun. It's just going to tell people that, hey, this is a professional brand, but not a company, right? So that's kind of the goal here, is to straddle that line. All right, so once you've picked a brand, we can start with the tiny topic picker. So the tiny topic picker is a tool that is meant to break through the time issue, right? It can feel like things take forever to get off the ground. And maybe you're just staring at the blank page thinking, gosh, she's right. There's so many opportunities that can come from this. I just have no idea where to start. That is where the tiny topic picker really shines. So what I like to think of is pick one thing that you did this week that maybe past you 2 months ago would have really liked to know. That doesn't even have to fit that full criteria. the idea is that we just pick one narrow thing, maybe one bug you fixed, maybe one thing you improved, one SQL pattern that you figured out, and start building a backlog so that you never face that blank page again. For me, I keep this inside of my WordPress blog, and I'll show you guys in a bit because it's totally free and it's really easy. And I just have a post that will never get posted, and all it is just little snippets of code that I've done over the years so that if I want to make a blog post that weekend, I just pull from that list and I say, okay, I'm going to make a blog post about this today. Makes things a million times easier. You're never staring at a blank page. Now, I cannot overstate this. Do not overthink this. You are not publishing it. It does not need to be perfect. You're also not writing it right then. It doesn't have to be long. It is meant to be word vomity. It is meant to be the spaghetti that you throw against the wall, and then we see what sticks and turns into a post. But this is critical for the next tool, which is that content snowball. So again, pick one tiny topic. What I usually recommend is you go with, again, something that maybe 2 months ago you wanted to know. Great example of this, I had somebody tell me that they're new to a tool. They're new to Power BI, they're new to SQL, and they weren't sure that they were qualified to write. I told them, that's actually perfect. Do you know how many people are new right now who might be dealing with something that you just figured out? What would past you, what would the you that was trying to figure something out 2 months ago really want to know? One of my most popular blog posts is actually on how to run a REST API from VS Code. Do I use VS Code all the time? No. Am I running APIs all the time? No. Did I one time figure it out and decide I never want to try and figure it out again? Yes, and that's why I wrote the blog post. You're kind of writing for future you as well. There's a big emphasis on the data community, especially. I hear this all the time. Somebody will have a problem that they remember solving, and they don't remember how they solved it, but they wrote a blog post about it, so they're able to go back and basically read their own publicly available notes. I've even had customers tell me that they've used my blog to solve a problem, and that's how they knew to come to me to ask for further follow-up. It is a great opportunity to get your name out there. And also, you can always send links to people on your team if you figured something out. But this way, you own the content. What I see a lot of people not realize is that jobs change a lot. And if they don't change a lot for you right now, that doesn't mean they won't in the future. I don't want to be really pessimistic about it, but if you build up your list of tiny topics, you build up your brand, that can stay with you no matter where you work. That is now your moving resume that you can take with you wherever you go. It is a very powerful tool, and I cannot overstate it. All right, so that's enough about the tiny topic picker. Let's talk about the content snowball. I love this GIF. It's maybe a little dramatic for what we're talking about here, but the idea here is that small things build up into really big things, right? So when we talk about that time thing, we talk about the perfectionism, the imposter syndrome. When we talk about time particularly, I always bring things back to that because that tends to be our first excuse, right? I don't have time. Maximum spend 30 minutes a week on this. Maximum spend 30 minutes. You take a tiny topic that you already listed out throughout your day, and you say, okay, I'm going to take my today I learned note or a quick fix or a small demo that I built, and I'm going to turn that into a blog. Now, this is something that I used to do, and so a little side note, a little personal info about me. My dad actually started Data on Wheels, the brand that I blog under. And when I started coming into the data world, he said, okay, why don't you start blogging? And so he used to tell me, you always blog for future you, and you always blog short. Blog something people might actually want to read. Don't be a cooking recipe website, right? Don't tell everybody all the things you looked at in your window that day before you write something out. The 30 minutes is a really good timestamp because in theory, your blog should take 2 to 5 minutes to read, right? We're not talking about something that is an epic novel. We're talking about maybe 500, 600 words, a few paragraphs with some pictures of screenshots of the code running so people know what they're doing. That's about it. It doesn't have to be big. So we can take that 30-minute and we can just run through a blog. And the next step from that is you can take that blog And you can then say, oh, actually, I think I could talk about this for an hour. I'm going to tell you right now, you actually only need to plan about 45 minutes of content anytime you go and speak. Maybe you can have, 60 minutes if you're really thinking, okay, I want to have some demos built in, or I want time for questions. But 45 minutes is the maximum I ever plan. The reason being, I like to give myself a couple of tangent opportunities, as you've seen today. So that way you can tell a story, because that's all a session is. A session is just telling a story about code you figured out. So it's actually not too hard to take that 500-600 word blog post that is already a story about something you solved, about a problem you came across, how you solved it, and what made it a good long-term fix. Those are the three components you need for any session, and that's it, right? If you have a blog post, you've already solved the middle part. All you have to tell people then is about why it was a problem and what makes it a really good fix. Once you can do all three of those together, you're set. So those three sections that I lined out, a lot of times it ends up being about maybe 10 minutes for a session, for the intro, what's the problem, what's going on. And then you've got, maybe 30 minutes of how you fixed it. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm a huge fan of live demos. Everybody's a little different. I think live demos are the best because if something goes wrong, people want to know how to troubleshoot. And then you come back to the end and you tell them, hey, this is what makes it a good long-term fix. Pretty cool. So you can do that from a blog post with just some few snippets of code that solves a problem. Collaborations are awesome. I have a hard time sometimes with like co-speaking on things, but I think collaborations are bigger than that. I think collaborations are things like David and I chatting and reaching out to each other about, hey, you know what? I've got this great group. I want them to hear from you about this. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Or I have another buddy of mine who reached out to say like, hey, let's put together a session, a whole day session about data warehousing because I've seen you do some cool stuff with it. Awesome, let's do it. Collaborations for you guys might be, hey, someone's doing some really cool work with this, piece of a back-end development code that I think would be awesome to collaborate on, and let's do an open source project that we can both commit to and make it epic, right? Something that we can share with each other and share with future people that we're going to work with. But honestly, the last one is the big one, visibility, right? In a world where you have thousands and thousands of AI applicants, it is really nice to be real. It is really nice for people to know you are real, and it is really great for them to know that you care about what you're doing and you want to give back to a team, to a community, and you care about communicating ideas effectively. That is what blogging, that's what speaking can do. And the nice thing about the content snowball is that we've built something up that 30 minutes a week, it can be a machine. I've heard some people tell me that they spend, and these are crazy people, I'm not advocating for this, they spend like an hour or 30 minutes a day on this stuff. That is insane. I maybe spend 30 minutes every other week, for being honest, other than when I'm speaking. So even 30 minutes a week, if that's too much, shorten it. Make it 30 minutes a month, but do something, right? Have some kind of internal clock to get started. So you don't just say, oh, that's a good idea. I wish I had done that 3 months ago. Start now. Today is tomorrow's yesterday, right? Start now. All right, last method, the Lego method. Obviously my favorite. No, but basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the tiny topic picker and the content snowball and put them together. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make every single one of these tiny topics that we've talked about mighty. So each tiny topic has the capacity to become a blog. It has the capacity to be a lightning talk. It could be a full meetup session like we're doing today, or a full conference session, right? Don't miss an opportunity to capitalize on your expertise. I hate it when people just read out their slides, so I'm sorry to do that to you guys, but I put it in bold because I think it's really important, right? You have an expertise. People are paying you money to do something, or you are so passionate about it, you're doing it in hopes that somebody will pay you money for it. Either way, don't miss an opportunity to capitalize on your expertise. Now, for me, for a long time, that was just Power BI visualizations. And I had so much fun putting together fake data sets of Middle Earth data and just typing out a problem that I had solved that week and being able to put that into a blog form that I could share with people if they ran into the same problem. It was so satisfying. So don't forget that all these things should build on each other, right? The tiny topic picker helps you kind of get off the blank page. The content snowball helps you get into a rhythm of practice, right? Actually putting these things into something that can build. And the Lego method is basically saying, you're okay to do a bunch of different topics. You don't need to have a blog series that's part 1 of 15. You can have different colored Lego blocks and make a very cool house. You can do some really awesome stuff with a bunch of different tiny topics. You do not need to be locked into one thing. Great example of this, Microsoft Fabric just came out a couple years ago. I was staunchly in the Power BI camp and ended up learning Python, PySpark, data warehousing, SQL, pretty much 3 years ago. And for me, that was actually a pretty big career shift, and I loved it. But I didn't have to change my brand. I didn't have to change my blog. I could just pivot into the tiny topics that were more interesting to me now. This is not, again, this is not a company with a PR firm. You are you, and you get to build what your brand looks like. All right, so exercise time, guys. This is what I want you to do. I know we're all virtual, and so I'm not going to make you turn on your cameras and show me because that's crazy. So I'm going to take you at your word for it, but at a minimum, think about it. I don't know about you guys. I no longer have pencils and paper at my desk anymore. But think about, or maybe type out in a notepad, one tiny topic. For example, for me this week, I've been working on a series of stored procs that are using translytical task flows inside of Microsoft Fabric to do some write back in Power BI. And I finally figured out a way to pass in multiple values. That little tiny piece of code, it's literally 2 lines, but that code is a tiny topic for me. And that's something that I probably should blog about, right? Then what you're going to do is list 5 bullet points about that. 5 is a lot. You can do 2, right? Problem equals this, solved because this. It can be stupid simple. I know it's going to feel like English class, but they taught us these patterns for a reason, right? So think of the tiny topic as like your thesis, but not really, because I'm not going to make you write 5 pages. I'm just going to write like 2 paragraphs. And you'd have a tiny topic, you have a couple of points about it, and that's it. Ta-da! You have done your less than 30 minutes for the week. That is all you have to do. If all you do is on Fridays, make a little note on your calendar to write down one tiny topic a week, or maybe you alternate. You say, hey, every other week I'm going to write a tiny topic, or I'm going to start writing a blog post. All it takes is 1 a month. 1 blog post a month is all it takes to really get the ball rolling on people seeing your content. The other thing that helps is having a community like this. So if you decide to start doing a blog, let us know. We would love to promote it. We would love to get your name out there so people know that you are a trusted source in the community, and you can start to grow your community that way. All right, so how do we take this tiny topic and put it somewhere, right? That's not just in a notepad. Well, the key is blogging, in my opinion. Other people have different paths, and if you are not a huge fan of blogging or writing, that is a-okay. But for me, blogging has been a really good way to overcome the fact that I don't want to be with people all the time, for lack of a better word. I don't know about you guys, I'm an introvert, and so sometimes it's nice just to write my thoughts out and share them without having to be in person for big conferences. So blogging for me is typically something I do in Q1. So I spend a lot of time in January and February doing that, and I get to enjoy all my evenings at home. It's lovely. If you're not looking to travel, if you have children, my dad used to do this all the time when we were growing up. He would just spend maybe a half hour a week writing up a blog, and he would be done. And that was it. It was great. It helped him build his personal brand without necessarily taking away from family time. So I wanted to give you guys a few free options. So WordPress is what I use, but I went ahead and did some more searching in case you're not a fan of WordPress, which I totally understand. There's also Wix and there's Blogger. Also, I think a lot of you guys are capable of making a website. To that, I say that is awesome. I am not capable of making a website, so I use these tools. If you can make a website, go for it. Don't let me stop you. These are just nice because you don't have to, right? You just get up and running in seconds. So I'm actually going to show you guys my blog. We're going to talk a little bit about some blogging strategies, and then we'll get into some actual demo because I can't help myself. I need a live demo. But blogging strategies, your drafts by your tiny topic housing. So this is where you're going to keep all your little tiny topics that we just talked about. Again, make the link variable. Don't be a cooking blog. I think we talked about that before. I am a huge fan of making puns, making jokes, making it fun for you to read later. Again, always assume a future employer is going to find it. So just be a little safe for work and all of these, but don't be afraid to show your personality, right? Don't be an AI bot. Don't put, a bunch of nonsense words that mean nothing next to big icons, right? Have fun with it and enjoy it and keep it brief. Don't be afraid to change it up. I also like to point that out because my dad finally gave over the blog to me just a few months ago. Got the opportunity to rebrand it, and it was awesome. I had a great time doing that. And I probably will do it more often now that I have the keys to the kingdom. So I highly recommend it. It's a landing page. It's not meant to be, your end all be all. You are welcome to change it. All right, so now we're going to get into the demo. I'm going to show you guys WordPress because it's one that I use. Again, those were two other options were Wix and Blogger, so feel free to use those as well. But let's go ahead and get into it. So I also want to show you guys Sessionize as well, so we'll get into that. All right, so this is WordPress. This is my admin page. If you go to plain old WordPress, you can create a free blog, which is what I have. I'll just show you guys what the blog actually looks like. It does have WordPress in the URL. That is because I don't want to pay any money. And so it just says WordPress in the URL, and that makes it free for me. So if I go back here, you can see like, hey, you can own a domain. But when I'm a huge data nerd, so I always like to check out my stats. You can see these for free. Gives you a number of visitors. You can see, which pages are the most viewed. I always have fun looking at the years, can't help myself. But you can kind of see, over the years, which years have the most views and how many posts it took to get there. So 2023 was a great year for us. We had 18 posts published. Little context, my dad got very sick, and so he has no longer been posting as much, which means, combined forces, we have less posts. But it is fun, right? So you're able to see where your sources are coming from, which posts are getting the most views. Little simple ones like creating an info button have gotten a ton of views. It's not all about the views, we'll talk about that in a bit, but it does help you narrow down which of your tiny topics might make for good content snowballs, right? Which ones might be good sessions for blog or for speaking. All right, so we'll go into the post section because this is what I really want to highlight for you guys when we're talking about the tiny topic picker especially. So I have a little draft, and it just lives in my drafts forever. It's just called Little Book of Measures. And if we look at this, it is literally just snippets of code. Zoom it, tips and tricks. I need to write a post about that because somebody told me that would be a really good post. So I just have it here so that whenever I'm ready to write it, I have an idea to what to write about. I've got, Power Query script on combining multiple CSVs into a table. Are there already blog posts about this? Yes. Is it okay if I write a new one? Also, yes. It is not a zero-sum game out there. You're welcome to post about stuff that you want to easily find later on. I've also got, I've got tons in here. You can see how small this scroll bar is. But this info button, this was one line of a tiny topic that turned into one of my most popular blog posts. It does not take much for these things to become viewed and accessible for people to use and enjoy. Again, just a lot of stuff in here. I'm not going to go through all of it because that would be insane. But I've just got little code snippets in here of stuff I didn't want to forget how to do. That's all it takes to build your tiny topics. All right, so hopping back in here, for WordPress, it's kind of fun. You get options to assign categories. So we've built that out. You don't have to do this. I also added some tags into mine. The idea being that I wanted it to be easily navigatable. So in our site, for example, we've got a little landing page, how to navigate from it through it. We've also got like a category filter. So if you're only interested in certain aspects of the blog, you can just quickly filter down to blogs relating to certain topics. You can also search for things. You can see recent posts. You can see my dad's been writing about a website he's been building, kind of fun. But there's tons of ways to make this uniquely yours and also make it easy for people to find stuff. So highly recommend. Check that out. Check out WordPress. They have these themes, which are super easy to use. We use Lovecraft, but you can use any of their pre-selected themes that are free, and it will just whip up a website for you. It's kind of crazy how easy it is. So I can't recommend them enough. I do not get paid for this. I also don't pay them, so I don't feel bad. But I do recommend using a site, especially if all you want to do is get started, right? Again, a lot of you guys can make your own websites, and that might be actually the better way to promote yourselves because it's what you do. Go for it. Just don't make it a 6-month project. Let it build. Let it be something that you iterate on. It doesn't have to be perfect for this to go live. So I just want to reiterate that. Sessionize, I might talk about, I think I have a couple slides on it, but I'll just show you guys while we're in here. This is what I use to find things to speak about. So if you are new to speaking or you want to be, Sessionize is a huge tool. So a lot of different conferences, they will come in and they will put up what's called a call for speakers. And you can get an email alert whenever there's a new one that pertains to something that you speak about. So if I go to my profile, for example, I can go to my public profile, and you can see I have areas of expertise. I've listed out topics and my preferred location. And so it takes in all of this and is able to spit back some events that I might be interested in. And so we can see, let's see, these are the ones I've already submitted to. But underneath Discover events, you can see there's even a button for nearby. I can see, okay, Knoxville Community Days is accepting accepting applications to speak in February. Awesome. That might be one I apply for. I could also apply to Louisville. You know, there's just a really nice, easy list for you to see what's coming up and what's nearby. Now, some of these are also virtual. So you can see like this one, for example, Zurich edition, definitely Germany, but it is online. So I could easily apply for that, no problem. It's got little tags like far away, so you know. Like, hey, this one's going to be in London. It is in person, so don't apply for that unless you want to go to London in April, right? Dynamics Con, super fun one. Anyway, I won't go into all of these, but if you put in your topics, it will find conferences relevant to what you want to speak about. And that is a really powerful tool to be able to get connected to conferences that might be around you or online virtual ones that maybe you just want to submit to and be able to speak virtually. Now, I do really recommend speaking in person. It is an awesome way to make new friends. There's something called the hallway track, which means that you just bump into people in the hallway and you make lifelong friends. It is absolutely incredible how true that ends up being. And that ends up being one of the best ways to get future jobs. So, for example, P3, I used to work at another consultancy. When I applied to P3, they already knew who I was because I had spoke at a conference that a few of them had gone to. And it was awesome because it made the interview process so much smoother. It was kind of a question of, okay, well, what are your questions? Because we already know that you know what you're doing, and we know you know how to communicate thoughts to other people. And that is invaluable in the technology space. Now, again, speaking might not be your jam. That's where blogging to me is a really good compromise to get your name out there without having to face down public speaking. But if you are looking at speaking, Sessionize is a totally free website. I highly recommend getting a public profile on there and starting to submit sessions. Now, you might be wondering, what do sessions look like? I have a number of sessions. I like to come up with fun names. I do use Copilot, or not Copilot, ChatGPT to help me think through names sometimes. Like I have an idea of what I want to talk about, and I'll say, hey, give me 10 nerdy names for this and 10 not nerdy professional names, and I'll just combine them. It's very fun. You gotta make it fun. For example, mastering Microsoft Fabric data warehousing, tips and tricks you need to know. Not a super fun name, but it works, and a lot of people have really enjoyed that session. Mastering the content snowball, coming up with names for things is very easy to do with the help of a LLM, in my opinion. Again, a lot of this is to get you off the blank page. That's it. It is not meant to come up with the topic for you. It is not meant to write your presentation for you, but it can really help you with, hey, I think this would be really cool, but I'm not totally sure how to get off of zero and get to something. And then you can edit. I always think of it like a true rubber duck. But all right, let's go back to the slide deck for a second. There we go. I knew I had speaking tips and tricks. I should stick to the deck. All right. So speaking tips and tricks, using Sessionize and GitHub. I am 100% sure a lot of you know GitHub. I would be shocked if people didn't know in this group, but if you don't know GitHub, it is also free. Everything I'm showing you today, totally free. No money needs to be spent to do these things and enjoy it. So GitHub is a great way to house your code as well. Especially if you have more complicated solutions that you want to be publicly available, maybe you blog about them and then link your GitHub. I have seen people be really successful with building their blogs out of GitHub. It is not for me, but if it is for you, go for it. It is a really good tool, and it also gives you metrics. The key here is to start getting that content snowball rolling, right? So what we're going to do is basically think of it like we have our blogs that house our tiny topics. The content snowball then says we take these little tiny snowflakes of topics and we add to them a little bit of complexity that allows us to speak about them and or put them in a GitHub. So when I'm speaking, and I'll show you guys how my process for this at the end here, I always put all my slide decks and any code that I've talked about into my GitHub in a folder. So that way, anybody who's attended the session or missed the session for any reason is able to go find it in my GitHub. Now, my GitHub is really oriented toward the events I speak at and is less oriented toward the actual code. That might be totally different for you. You might have a folder about a project and you share that with everyone and you just update that folder. For me, my folders are all the events, right? So it just depends on how you want to use it. It just helps my brain to think of it as event driven. Now, with that, the goal here is always visibility, right? Sessionize is publicly available. GitHub, make your GitHub publicly available. Don't hide it behind something if you want people to be able to see the work you're doing. Now, if you're selling the work you're doing or you need it to be proprietary information, totally different subject. The idea here is that we're building a brand, right? We're building something that you can give back to the community. All right. One thing I do want to cover that is really big is accessibility strategies. So I usually keep my background light and my text dark. I've seen some people flip that and it can work, but depending on the presentation mode, so obviously online, not a huge deal. You guys can turn up your brightness if you need to. You guys could zoom in on your screens, no problem. In person, you might get a really bad projector and it might be totally washed out. And so keeping the background white and then text dark just makes a huge impact, especially for people who might be suffering from, maybe they've got trifocals and they're not quite able to get the right perception level for the lighting in the room. This just makes it so they can actually see your screens as well. I'm also a huge fan of easy to read font sizes. I cannot tell you how obvious it is to me if somebody is a new speaker or not a great speaker. If their font size is less than 20, I get very worried. Nobody will be able to read it from the back of the room. And maybe they've done that because they want to put a bunch of text on the page. The slide deck is honestly the most text I put on any page in any of my presentations. And it's because I don't have, pictures of code to put up there. So what I recommend is make sure your font is big, make sure it's easy to read. I use a dyslexic friendly font. If you want it, it's going to be, all the links are in the slide deck on the first page. I don't know if you guys saw it on the title page, but steal it. It's open source. Use it. I don't care. Enjoy it. Make sure that other people can read your stuff. You might have seen that I used a tool called Zoom It in one of my demos. Basically, it's another free tool, totally free. Zoom It executable. It is a Microsoft Power tool. So if you have a Windows OS, it is set up for that. It is totally fine using that, and it will not take down your machine. Let me just put it that way. Microsoft supports it. So it is a really good way to make your demos engaging and readable because you're able to zoom into a portion of a screen. You can do arrows, you can do text, all kinds of stuff. It is a huge win when you're talking about making your speaking stuff accessible. All right, talking strategies. Are you a nervous public speaker? This is for you. Honestly, public speaking is a nerve-wracking thing. I will just tell you guys a little bit about me. In high school, my senior year of high school, I decided I wanted to learn how to play piano. And so I took piano lessons for a few months and I went to my first recital. And I was told I had to memorize everything. I'd practiced for months at that point, and I totally bombed. I got up there, blank page, could not think of any of the notes. My mom actually deleted the recording of the piano recital. That's how bad it was. So I get it. It is really scary to go up there and potentially fail. I'm gonna tell you right now, you can have a slide deck. A slide deck is your saving grace. For me, I put a bunch of notes in my code. I always tell people it's for other people when they look at my code later. It's for me. It's for me to remember why I did something and I don't have that blank page moment. But the idea here, I think we've mentioned it a couple times now, especially with the tiny topic in the blog, but all you need is a problem. You need a problem solving, that path, and then the payoff, right? The problem statement is what's wrong. The path is going to be how do you fix it? And the payoff is what happens when it's fixed, right? You should always have those three things. If you have those three things and your talk is about 25 minutes, nobody's going to notice because you have now solved a problem for them. It is always a good thing to solve a problem. If that's all you need to speak is a problem to solve, I highly recommend telling a story or two as well. It's tough, but the idea here is that if you're using that tiny topic picker, you probably have a story to tell because you have picked it from a problem in your life. So you have a real story to tell. As you start to speak and you get to meet more people, it could even not be your story. It could be a friend of your story. This is not proprietary information. We're not making money off this. You can tell someone else's story. That's totally fine. Another thing I always put on here is leave time for questions. I'm doing bad at that tonight. We're getting pretty close, but typically you can leave time for about 15 minutes of questions. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to get a question. If you don't know what the answer is to the question, it's okay. I can't tell you how many times people ask me really in-depth questions I do not know. I used to speak about C# stuff. Never taken a C# class in my life. I have no idea how to do in-depth C# code. And it was still really useful for a lot of people. But if I had a question I couldn't answer, I would just tell them to email me. I would put my email up the screen and I could help them research it later. Easy peasy. That is the way to go. Don't worry about not knowing everything. Nobody expects you to be ChatGPT. If they wanted ChatGPT, they wouldn't come and hear a real session, right? Another thing, get excited, have fun. This is supposed to be about your passion. This is about something you're interested in. If it doesn't get you excited, don't speak about it. It's not easy. It doesn't have to be crazy. Now, the last thing is really big. This is the fear of failure smacking you right in the face. Don't worry if someone walks out. It happens a lot. It happens a lot more than you might think. I had my first big session at a big conference, and I had a guy stand up and walk out in the middle. I was terrified. And it was right after he had asked me a really in-depth C# question. But he found me later and just told me that it wasn't the session for him. He had been debating between three. He had come to mine and decided it wasn't the one. Conversely, at that time, it was huge, I was very, very relieved to see this. I had 6 people come in late to my session because they had left another session because they had been debating like that man had, and they had decided to come to mine instead. It happens, and it's okay. Especially at a paid conference, people are paying, and every single hour they spend there is very much in their mind the money they spent. It's okay if people walk out. Your session doesn't have to be for everybody, and if people leave, it's all right. Terrifying, but it is all right, and you will be okay. All right, couple more This one is huge for the ladies and for the men. I have heard some uncomfortable man shoe stories. Wear comfy shoes and something you won't fidget with when you're nervous. For me, I used to wear I used to wear heels for 2 times. That was it. That's all it took. And then I realized that I like my feet. So now I wear flats with removable inserts, and I put in Dr. Scholl's inserts in them. So it's basically like walking on clouds. Nobody knows. They look cute. Honestly, data IT conferences, I wear a collared shirt and jeans every time. Nobody has said anything, and it looks really professional. You could probably show up. I've seen people show up in Hawaiian shirts. It is not that serious. You can just wear something that looks semi-professional in case you're looking for a job later and somebody remembers you as the Hawaiian shirt person, right? Just keep that in mind. Know yourself. Do you get sweaty when you're nervous? Do you anxiously pace? Do you get dry mouth? Prep for that. I always have a big old water bottle with me because I get dry mouth occasionally and I need to be able to take a sip between questions or maybe I need to pause. Hey, just know what helps you. I have a whole bunch of cough drops in front of me because I have a cold and I don't want to be coughing throughout this whole thing. Prep. You're going to be okay, but prep. Being nervous is a great sign. It is a great sign because it means you care. Don't be afraid of being nervous. It's kind of like when you're asking somebody out on a date. It is that kind of nerves that you should be getting. You should be getting little butterflies in your stomach because you're so excited and you just want it to go well. And those never go away. I hate to tell you this. If that is something that terrifies you and you don't ever want that feeling, speaking might not be for you, and that's okay. That is not a failure of your character. That is okay. The last one is a little bit more practical, but don't forget your laptop charger. I've had laptops die. Don't do that. It's very awkward, and you just kind of have to stand there and be like, well, shoot. So always bring your laptop charger. That is number one. All right. We already talked about the sessionized demo. For the sake of time, I'm just going to keep us rolling. But again, I'm also a huge fan of memes, if you couldn't tell. Steal the format if you want. It just gives people a little smile in between each thing. The goal is to have fun and have other people have fun with you. All right, so sneaky success killers. These are terrifying things that I think usually freak people out. Getting buried in the number of views or the attendees. You saw that chart of the year-over-year views that I have on my blog. It is very low for 2025. 2025 has been kind of a rough year for me other than speaking. I've had some awesome speaking opportunities and I have not been blogging as much. That's okay. I'm not going to get up in my head about it. It doesn't mean my blog is a failure. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. What it means is that this season was not for blogging. Maybe next season is. It's not a huge deal. I'm not making money off the views on my blog. I'm not worried about it. It is just something that helps me process new technology I'm learning. So I really want to get back to it so I can process all the cool stuff I've been learning. But it is not about the views. It's not about the attendees. It is about just getting out there and contributing back into something that has given you a lot. The other success killer I like to talk about is don't try and sound like someone else. I've heard people try that. It's not always a bad thing when you're starting out to have a example to copy, but sound like you. Try and have fun with it. I have had a lot of people ask me, even at FabCon, they came up to me and they said, hey, how do you have so much confidence? And I actually told some people that I pretend I'm a 50-year-old man who is at the peak of his career, about to go up for a VP position. That guy has no fear. Let me tell you. His name is Gary. We have a great time, but I pretend to be him, and he is my speaking persona that I put on. Now, Gary doesn't sound like anyone else, actually. He is secretly just me, but it helps sometimes to pretend that you're someone else just a little bit, because it just helps you get over that fear of failure hump, right? Don't wait for perfect. Just enjoy it. Have fun. Don't worry about the criticisms. If you hear criticism from your speaking or your blogging, it's because people want you to do more. People want you to do better so that they can keep enjoying it. There was some aspect of it that gave them hope for a future of how awesome you could be. Don't lose sight of that, right? If you have some really bad criticisms, come find me. I'll go yell at them for you. You've got people in your corner who want to see you succeed. All right, last one. Tracking your success. Key metrics. Consistency. Be consistent. Talk about your submissions to conferences. You don't have to get accepted to be successful. Just submitting and getting the ball rolling, getting feedback, just building your little snowball into an avalanche. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of consistency. I always keep track of my new connections. Anytime someone connects with me after LinkedIn, after an event, I get so excited. That is my key metric. That is what I want all the time. Post per month is a great metric. Again, I try and aim for one a month, submissions per year, maybe aim for 2, maybe aim for 1, whatever your speaking level comfort is. Currently, I'm trying to do about like 6, but I've built to that, right? Like that took me confidence building time to want to submit to speak multiple times a year. So do what your comfort level is, but don't make your goals to be the number of views. Make your goals to be the number of times you've gone up to the plate and swung. That's what we're trying to aim for. All right. I have left 3 minutes for questions. Any questions, guys?
Also, if we don't get to everything, I can pass questions on down the line. That's no worries. So
Perfect. I'll put this up too while we chat a little bit further.
that would be smart. That would be smart.
If there are no questions, it's also okay. I will show you guys my GitHub demo.
I do have a quick question, Kristyna. Will
Yeah.
people get that slide deck after this? Excellent. Yeah, I can add that to the recording.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Perfect. Perfect.
Let me do that now, actually. And if anyone has a question, pop it in the chat and we will pivot. But I will show you guys that. Let me get my Git up here. So I have my Git synced to a folder on my desktop. And so I just have a folder called 2025 presentations. I make a new folder. I will be changing this naming convention next year. I've just already done this, so we're here. So let's call this code U. And we'll put November in front of it for now. And then I actually keep a folder of all my presentations. Again, everybody organizes their lives differently. This just works for me. I just have a list of all of them, and then I can update them in one place. So I'm going to grab this one, pop it in there. If I have a presentation with a demo, what I do is I have a temp prep staging area. So you might actually recognize a couple of these, but basically the deck that I'm presenting on and any kind of artifacts that go with it, I keep it in the temp prep if I have a technical demo coming up, because then I don't have to hunt through all my code to find what I'm talking about. But that's in there now. I can open up Git, desktop. And we'll just put had a blast, commit. It's not that serious, we just put whatever I want in my commit messages. And then I'll get you guys the link for that. But yeah, if you're curious, you can come in here. This is publicly available. You're more than welcome to dig through all the other presentations I've done this year. But let me go ahead and put that link in here for us. But yeah, you can just download that PowerPoint right from here. Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear how your guys' journeys have gone or are going.
Yeah, and that actually puts us right at time. So perfect time. Again, if anybody wants to join any of the data group meetings in Lexington, just let me know. I can give you the right info for it and everything. But yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. Really appreciate it. It's a good turnout. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks again for having me. I'm glad we made it work.